With it now being easier than ever to hit high levels in Payday 3 thanks to Update 7's progression overhaul, a lot more people now have access to the full 28 skill points that you can get from reaching level 100 in the game. And as such, a lot more people have a lot more skill points to fiddle around with while making Payday 3 builds. So today in this video, I'm showcasing my 2024 Ultimate Stealth build. This is the best way, in my opinion, to play stealth in Payday 3 skills-wise. Now, unlike Payday 2, a lot of the skills are going to be very similar to maybe what you might already have or your friends have talked about. This is just me trying to collect what I think are the very best ones and the key things to focus on if you want to have a stealth build in 2024 that also deals with some of the more recent stealth modifiers that also came out with Update 7. So there's a few reasons why I've picked certain skills and I'm going to walk you through them. As usual, I'll talk you through the skills first and then afterwards show you some actual gameplay with some overall commentary on the build. So this is my loadout. Remember, guns don't really matter very much in stealth because you're just trying to stay undercover, and realistically you don't need to kill guards as much as you did in Payday 2. You can still take them hostage, take them down. If you got the domination skill, you could even take them down when you're looking at you. I don't actually have that. It's called menacing. You could get that skill if you wanted, but I don't personally use it. Deployable ammo bag, you don't really need any. As for throwables, I only bring a throwing knife because it's the most logical out of the lot. The rest are either too loud or a little bit too widespreading for me to want to use in a stealth setting. We'll bring ECM jammers along very intentionally for a reason you'll see in a minute. You want the thinnest armor possible for high movement speed, but the most important part of this build obviously is where I allocate the skill points. And as you can see, most of the skill points are assigned to infiltrator, to grifter, to hacker, and to scrambler, with also an honourable mention to transporter because that's got 3 in there. So what I want to do as always is run you through where the skill points are going, explain my logic generally, and then give you more details when we get into the gameplay. So in infiltrator, we've aced the base skill and got the 3 following after it: quick fingers, retriever, and bagger. We then also got the mastery skill for sharpshooter speed aim to increase ADS and scope speed. That one is a more debatable one, and I will suggest a skill to replace that with if you prefer. In escapist, I got the basics. When you're masked up and sprint for at least 3 seconds, you gain rush, and the tail end one, swift, which increases base sprinting speed when masked on by 10%. That one's more circumstantial. A lot of stealth is mask off, but I think it's quite nice when you have a mask on to be able to sprint faster when needed. I've also chosen manipulator basic here for tying up hostages faster, nice and simple, but grifter and hacker are 2 of the main ones. So we have got every skill basic in the main section of grifter, just not the mastery, and in hacker we have got every skill including the ace of the base of hacker except for routed ping. So there are a lot of different skills here. Now grifter is a lot of rush, and one of the most important parts of this build is having rush active and making the most of it as often as you can. Not just to move faster, but to make it less likely for things you do to be detected, for you to get around and dodge guards detecting you faster. It comes in very, very handy. So just gaining rush by standing next to an employee really helps, but on top of that, cameras won't detect you trespassing in private areas, and this one's really important for the new threat detection modifier in stealth, where cameras will set the alarm off if they see you, no matter where you are, public area or not. This skill helps counter that, so that as long as you have rush active and standing next to a civilian from the base skill will help trigger it if you don't already have it active. That will stop any camera in a public or private area from detecting you. You still need to be careful in secure areas, but I feel like you normally would have to be like that by the very nature of them, so I don't think that adds much more of a challenge. Social engineering, though, as long as you're a master and have rush, you won't get detected performing illegal actions. As I said, that's quite handy. Answering radios 50% faster is just for convenience. Whereas hacker, this is all about looping cameras and gaining run times. Now what I will say, you get 1 runtime later on for getting the basic scrambler skill, so that plays in here, but hacker, what we have here is all about cameras. It's the most important thing. So you can now hack into cameras, you can move them around if you want, but the most important part is you want to be able to loop cameras, secure looping. Now this works in every heist except for Cerberus core modifier heist, because that modifier means that all loops that you trigger for cameras will disappear after 5 seconds. After 5 seconds the loop will end and you have to do it again, and that will keep happening over and over and over again. That's unfortunately something you got to try and work around, but you can still use the loops to your favor if you wish, and if you don't and you want something more reliable, this build's also got that in Scrambler, which we'll get to. So you can see here we've got skills to give us 2 runtimes in hacker. Appliance breach, activating laws from a distance. Again, that is more circumstantial, but it could come in handy. We don't have routed ping because that just marks everything using a runtime. I'd rather keep all 3 runtimes for looping cameras. Don't think it's necessary. Glitch protocol also allows you to hack a guard's radio, which stops them from escorting you out of buildings, or just generally, if you don't want them in a way and you want to run past them, then you can just hack their radio and there won't be a problem for a short period of time. Finally, at the end, you also are able to answer radios remotely if you have a line of sight to the guard's body. So it saves you having to pick up the body if you're trying to answer a radio at a distance, maybe dealing with 2 guards back to back, or someone seeing something across the room. It's a good circumstantial one to deal with that problem. Most of the skill points come down to Scrambler, so let's focus on that and then pick up the extra bits at the end. So Scrambler, the base skill, again, just to get my runtime, but also to get some of the other skills. This one here, Extra Pockets, allows me to have an extra ECM jammer, and then this skill here, Cam Distortion. Cameras within 0.5 meters of ECM jammers you own are disabled. This effect starts when the ECM jammer is placed and lasts until it's removed or used up. So in case you don't realize, that means you can place a jammer next to a camera, you don't have to activate it, it will just shut the camera off permanently. And if you want to move it and switch which camera it's blocking, you can pick it back up with full recall. This skill allows you to pick up an ECM jammer if you haven't used it, which again, you don't need to, and so you can pick up and choose any 2 cameras, regardless of if Cerberus core is active, to just shut off. It's kind of like when Payday 3 first launched, you could only loop 2 cameras, now you've got a permanent way of doing it, and you've also got the option to loop up to 3 cameras thanks to Scrambler. If Cerberus core isn't active, you've got then 5 cameras you've got taken down at all times. It works really well, and especially also counters the AI modifier that's been added to Stealth where there's no guard in the camera room. You can choose 5 cameras to have blocked at any one time, and it hopefully means that you wouldn't need to take out the cams to get your objectives done, because you can choose which cameras are hacked at any one time, choose which ones have ECM jammers, it's all down to you. If you start looping cameras, it will loop the most recent 3 that you pick. So if you loop 3 and pick a 4th one, the first one you looped will be unlooped to account for the new one. It works really well, it flows nicely, and as I said, 5 cameras down is super duper helpful. Beyond that though, we've got a couple of extra skills. CQC Specialist, grabbing a human shield gives you rush, another way to trigger it, and then Transporter, picking up a bag to gain rush, but also allowing us to get the extra couple of skills here. No movement speed penalties, basically meaning when you carry a bag, you're not slowed down, and Powerlifter, carrying 2 bags. Pure convenience, but it's very, very nice. So that's where all the skill points are used. Now the only thing I would suggest in terms of skills, as I said, there's one thing I would note, and that's the Ace of Scrambler. Whenever you place a tool, gain rush. That's another good way to get rush triggered, but in my skill point configuration, I don't have the skill points for it. Now you could say grabbing a human shield is circumstantial, or you could say increasing my weapon swap speed that I have there, I actually might not have mentioned it, on top of having the ability to increase my ADS and scope speed. You could trade either one of those out for that. They're the more negotiable things depending on what suits you better, but this is the way I've got my skill points loaded out. But that is how my skill build looks in Payday 3 for my ultimate stealth build. So let's roll some gameplay, and I'll give you some more information about just the build generally and some general advice. Let's roll the footage. And so here we are with my gameplay for the ultimate stealth build. So as you can see, and as I explained earlier, some of the most important things are centered around cameras and rush. The ability to take down cameras whenever you want, but also if cameras are active, to have rush active, which prevents them from seeing you doing certain things. If you commit illegal actions, they'll still clock you. But with rush, one of the skills that we have is to allow you to lockpick things in just one successful land of the lockpick minigame. That basically means that if you can do the lockpick first time, the camera won't be able to detect you in time for you to finish lockpicking. You can do it quick enough that even if a camera's seeing you, it won't cause a problem. Things like that, and civilians not detecting you do illegal actions if you have rush in private areas. There are little bits like that that have been in the game since Payday 3 came out, things that make stealth a bit easier, and a bit more easy for you to bend the rules and do some illegal things without feeling the ramifications. But more recently, getting those extra skill points, and as I've said, the camera dealing stuff, that's the biggest thing about this build that really prompted me to make this video. Because as I said, when Payday 3 first came out, you could only loop 2 cameras, but now with the use of ECM jammers, you can put them down in particular places to down cameras, and with the skill layouts I've got, as long as you don't use the ECM jammers, which again, you don't need to, you can pick them back up off the walls and put them anywhere else. So you can choose at any one time up to 5 cameras to have down. As I said before, bear in mind the Cerberus core modifier, which can be active in some stealth heists, will mean that cameras will reset their loops after 5 seconds and become standard active cameras again. So just bear in mind that is a bit of a wrinkle that you have to work around if it's in that particular heist. But even if that's true, as I said, having the 2 ECM jammers to put next to cameras basically balances out with how the game was at launch in September, where you could only loop 2 cameras. I think it's worked out quite nicely, and now in some heists you can just have 5 permanently done. I think the best thing about it as well though is that you can just choose whatever 5 you want at whatever time, and I love that with the looping you don't have to unloop a camera to loop another one. The game is aware and will unloop the first one to take the place of the new one you've chosen to loop, so you can constantly have them changing, and even you could just hack in through one camera and scroll through the list in the corner and pick the ones you want to loop without being near the cameras. It's very user friendly and quite accessible for stealth playthroughs and works really well in my opinion. Beyond that, just some general commentary on stealth gameplay using this build. Of course, bear in mind that there are only 4 pages active on normal and hard, 3 on very hard, and 2 on overkill. Triggering one more after that will activate search mode, and if search mode's already active, it will set the alarm off. Which is why I do think that the HUD is a bit misleading when it says so many pages until alarm, or radios until alarm, because technically there's one more than that if you're not in search mode, so it would be better to say how many radios until search, and then change it to alarm if you're in search mode, but that's just a feedback for the devs really. Just be careful. You know, it really sounds stupid, but it is true. Don't take risks you don't need to. You have got a lot of fail-safes in place for civilians to not detect certain things, and for you to be able to hack a guard's radio if they see you doing something suspicious or see you in an area you shouldn't be, but that radio hack has a 60-second cooldown, so you can't keep running into guards and expecting for things to go well. You should still always be careful in secure areas no matter what's going on, but public and private with rush active, it should make things very easy to work around. I also have the skill that allows you to pick up throwing knives after throwing them against surfaces. Now I'm pretty sure guards will notice them if they detect the sound, walk up and see the throwing knife, but as long as you throw throw it into a particular surface, pick it up, and then move away, it serves as a really good distraction to get guards to go to certain areas if you don't want them to see you for whatever reason. If you're masked up, for example, or in a secure area, things like that. It creates a really good distraction so you can throw a knife onto a surface, pick it up, and then move away, and then you've still got your throwing knives to use later. And it's part of the reason I don't have the increased throwable skill in this particular version of the loadout, because I think 2 throwing knives, if you can pick them back up, is pretty much enough. I don't think you'd need 4 for that situation. The key thing as well in stealth is stay on masked for as long as you can. I've got a couple of skills for being masked up, but I don't use them that much, and that's also why you may be wondering why I didn't pick the assassin skills that just came out in the last update. One of the early assassin perks is to get 20% faster movement speed while crouching while masked up, and I just don't think you need it personally, but if you want to get that, you can move some skill points around and grab it. It's down to you. As I've said with all my build videos, I have a general idea for what I like in my skill points, but some things can be moved around, and I always welcome people in the comments suggesting ways they would move things around. It's always insightful to see how people would choose to move their skill points with their particular loadouts or how they're doing their stealth builds. People may still be using the microcams rather than the ECM jammers, and they're quite a good way to detect guards, keep them marked. Putting them on the front or back of lead guards I always think is quite a fun thing, because you can always tune into your camera and see where that lead guard is. That's quite useful too. And if you bring a couple people along with stealth builds, you can each toggle between different things. Some of you can have ECM jammers, some of you can have microcams. It's up to whatever you want to choose and whatever you want to play. But I think the best thing about this build is that it is very useful for solo stealth and also super useful in group stealth. But there you go, folks. That's everything you need to know about my stealth build for Payday 3. If you've enjoyed the video, click the thumbs up button. It would be greatly appreciated. It shows me you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And of course, if you want to see more Payday 3 content from this channel, then click that subscribe button. News builds and everything in between, I'll be here to deliver them for you. Which, speaking of, if there are any builds that you'd like to see me talk about in a future video, leave them in the comment section down below. I think obviously a lot of us can agree one of Payday 3's problems right now is that there aren't enough skill builds that you can work with and create with the skills that we have, but there are still a couple of things you could do. So you could look at maybe my usual loud build or my mixed build, my pseudo stealth build, which works in both scenarios, combines the best of both of my builds. I can make videos on both of those if you would like. But apart from that, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all this Friday for the next dev blog, whatever it may contain, hopefully some boys in blue news, and I'll see you all very soon. Thanks for watching, stay safe, see you in the next one.